And 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, and welcome to this here Congressional hearing taking place at Allen Munch Auditorium. On the record, this will take place on this fine Friday morning on the 6th day in the month of March in the year 2015. The House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence will now come to order. Today, our topic of discussion will be the whistleblowing versus national security and the actions of one Edward Snowden. We will now introduce the panel, starting with reporter Glenn Greenwald. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Next up is Mr. Keith Alexander, former head of the National Security Agency. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
And we have Mr. Anthony D. Romero. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
That brings us to Ms. Jean Terry.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
And finally, last but not least, we have Oscar-winning filmmaker and well-known reporter, Ms. Laura Poitras.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Would all the witnesses please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated. For our agenda, Mr. Greenwald will present first. Mr. Greenwald, the chair recognizes you, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a journalist, it is my duty to report the truth. That truth, however, is not always the same as what the government tells us. It is no secret that I have always found the National Security Agency to be untrustworthy and that I have actively opposed its ever-increasing scope of power in my writings. My responsibility as a journalist is to investigate that which the general public tactically accepts and, in the cases where I discover that something is amiss, I must correct the beliefs of the people that have been instilled upon them, in this particular case, by their own government. The documents presented to me in Hong Kong by the patriot, Edward Snowden, provided information essential to the American people whose constitutional rights were continuously being violated by the programs of ubiquitous surveillance initiated and carried out by the NSA. These programs were without oversight and inhibited citizens' freedom of expression. While the NSA claims that these programs were created with the purpose of preventing terrorist attacks, it has little evidence of ever having done so with the help of the information that was unscrupulously collected from the citizens it is supposed to protect. It is the media's duty to report the facts that are presented. Without the media, there would be no check on these independent agencies that act without concrete legal or moral oversight. I was presented with groundbreaking documentation by the whistleblower Edward Snowden, who had been inside the operation about the violations by the NSA of civil liberties, and I did my duty to the people by reporting it. Nothing more. The information that I received had direct impact on American citizens, and so I was journalistically compelled to publish the findings rather than protect such a secret that the government had already hidden for far too long. The unprecedented abuse of power by the NSA that violates the privacy of everyone in America must be restricted and carefully watched. We have now the opportunity to regulate surveillance, and we must seize that opportunity before it becomes too late. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may we recognize?
Yes, the chair recognizes Representative Crowley from the great state of Texas.
Thank you. Mr. Greenwald, you are aware that Edward Snowden released these secrets to the world, ruining years of work by our government?
I don't believe that he ruined a secret that needed to be exposed. He ruined a terrible, terrible atrocity and breach of civil liberties that was going on behind the government, and he is a patriot.
Well, that is impertinence to the privacy of our citizens at home, but what can you say about exposing the secrets of our interactions with terrorists and enemies abroad?
What secrets? Nothing has been exposed. There's no documentation that shows that you've gone anywhere with these terrorist organizations.
Would you not say that these secrets being revealed has aided terrorists in any way?
Absolutely not.
It has not at all.
I don't think any terrorist worth his dollar would, use a cell phone to plot a terrorist attack. They're not complete idiots.
Mr. Greenwald, that is just ignorant. The job of the NSA is to protect our country. You don't think they were doing their job in any capacity?
I think that they were doing their job handed down to them by the executive branch, and it is disgusting what they were doing. The job that they were told to carry out is morally and civilly wrong.
Well, in your opening statement you say about your duty and the media's duty to do what is right, but who are you, an unelected official, just a reporter, to decide what should be released to the public, what national secrets deserve to be revealed?
I am an American citizen.
You acted according to your own agenda.
You think you're above the American people. You think that because you were elected, you know more than...
Mr. Greenwald, please.
You were in no position to release that information and made the conscious decision to do so, directly assisting enemies.
It was my duty to release the...
Making you a traitor.
Mr. Greenwald, I'm not going to talk to you again.
I apologize,
No
Mr.
further
Chairman.
questions for Mr. Greenwald.
May I be recognized by the chair?
Yes, the chair recognizes the representative from the great state of Wyoming.
Mr. Greenwald, could you please elaborate on the positive effects these Snowden revelations have had on American society?
Absolutely. It has opened the discussion between the government and the people about how much the government should know about its citizens, how far its privacy can go, how far the citizens' privacy can go. And that is a necessary discussion to have.
Thank you, Mr. Greenwald. I yield the balance of my time.
At this point, we will move on to Mr. Alexander. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Keith Alexander, and I would like to begin by saying that I'm honored to be here before Congress, and I would like to thank the committee for having me. I'm the former director of the National Security Agency, and I oversaw the actions taken by the agency to secure the safety of the American people. I'm here to act as a witness on behalf of the NSA on this matter, as I feel my expertise and experience could provide valuable insight into this hearing. While many decry the actions of the NSA in pursuing the safety of the people of America, I believe that too few realize the importance of our actions. The system of intelligence that was built and operated by the NSA was created only with the interests of the American people at heart and were completely within the law. Regardless of outcry, the actions of the NSA saved countless American lives and prevented numerous terrorist plots. In protecting the nation, we served the people of our country and did all we could in the name of keeping our great nation safe and secure. Mr. Snowden, however, worked directly counter to these efforts and has put the nation at risk with his so-called whistleblowing. Mr. Snowden released countless American secrets of invaluable worth, and as a result, put the lives of millions of Americans in jeopardy. Mr. Snowden has effectively subverted the security of the nation while giving a major boon to our enemies, making him the very definition of a traitor. The NSA was created and has existed to pursue the mission of keeping this nation safe, yet Mr. Snowden has completely undermined that initiative, making him an enemy of the state. He has stolen the secrets of our nation and quite possibly sold them to foreign powers. His actions condemn him. By making vulnerable both America and her allies, Mr. Snowden has not only broken the trust given to him by the NSA, the CIA, and the nation, but has also broken the laws created to keep America safe. This country was founded on law and the ideals of justice, and so Mr. Snowden should face the consequences of his action in betraying the law, the nation, and her ideals. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes, the chair recognizes Ms. Blizzard from the great state of Arkansas.
Pull the mic.
Okay, Mr. Alexander, you talked about how in your opening statement the NSA protects against terrorist attacks.
That's correct.
Okay, so in the Obama administration, they claimed that 54 terrorist plots were foiled due to the phone tapping of U.S. citizens, but you have recently admitted that only 1 or 2 have actually been foiled. So would this not prove that it is unnecessary for all phone conversations to be monitored to the extent revealed by Edward Snowden?
Well, that number is, of course, as a responsible member of the NSA and the government. I can't reveal all the information that has been bestowed upon me, but that number is also inclusive of events that helped prevent future terrorist plots, such
But you
as...
have said that before, that only 1 or 2.
Right, but that number, 1 or 2 possible direct terrorist plots in which the attack was imminent, but the larger number also includes possible funding to terrorists or communication or events that could have progressed into future terrorism. That is also the duty of the NSA to protect against.
So you wouldn't mind if your phone was being tapped right now?
Madam, I would do whatever I needed to keep this nation safe, because I believe in her safety above all else.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. I yield the balance at this time.
Caleb?
May I be recognized?
Yes, the chair recognizes the representative from the great state of New York.
As the former director of the NSA, how has Mr. Greenwald's decision to aid Edward Snowden impacted and undermined the work of government officials such as yourself?
Well, I believe that it has entirely undermined the efforts of the NSA. Mr. Snowden, or Mr. Greenwald at this hearing has said that no terrorist would ever be stupid enough to use electronics in communication, but I don't believe that that's true. In fact, it's not true. However, after Mr. Snowden's leaking of government secrets, I believe it's much more likely now that terrorists and enemies of America will be able to subvert our defense grid by being able to know exactly how we were attempting to catch them. I believe that it has entirely put the nation at risk.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander.
Mr. Romero will present next. Mr. Romero, the chair recognizes you, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. My name is Anthony D. Romero. I am the Executive Director of the American Civil Liberties Union. In my 13 years as head of the ACLU, I have served as the leader of the nation's premier defender of liberty and individual freedom. In all my years in my position, I have rarely seen a single individual as patriotic and courageous as Edward Snowden. Mr. Snowden is the country's quintessential hero, as he brought to light the numerous injustices the nation's government has committed under the excuse of national security. As many would argue that Snowden is a traitor to the nation for his public display of the dark national secrets, his actions were justified. Predating the action of Mr. Snowden, I'd like to point out the failures of the government and the court systems on the particular issues regarding constitutional oversight over the actions of the NSA, which includes many people in this very room. When the New York Times finally found the courage to expose the earlier NSA spying program in 2005, Congress responded by legitimizing and extending this illegal program through the FISA Amendments Act of 2008. The court proved little more vigorous in their willingness to serve as a meaningful check on such surveillance programs. 2 separate cases filed by our own public interest group have been pushed away with very few questions answered. Snowden's decision to alert the world of the government's injustice, in contrast to taking the information to court, was the right decision. He didn't turn to the normal government channels to raise his concerns of illegal government activity because he knew that the other channels had been used and failed. Fortunately, both the courts and Congress seem to have renewed vigor in looking into the constitutionality of NSA surveillance, but such action is a direct result of Snowden's revelations. Edward Snowden is a great American and a true patriot. My colleagues and I are committed to assisting him on any legal issues he may confront. Thank goodness for patriots like him, who are willing to endure personal sacrifices to defend truths we hold self-evident, but which too many Americans take for granted.
Mr. Romero, if we grant Snowden immunity after revealing national secrets, do you think there are any cases in which you think national secrets need to be kept safe?
Of course. Secrets where it hurts the American people, for example, if American lives were really put at risk, but there's no way that anything Snowden leaked put any American lives at risk. None of the documents he leaked had any proof of that.
Mr. Romero, with all due respect, being a part of the ACLU, you do not receive the abundant threats that face this great nation on a daily basis. You don't know that these threats and attacks may have been something like 9/11. You never know. All right, and unfortunately, you're not in a position where those are revealed to you. But if you were in one of someone like Mr. Alexander's position, you'd see these potential attacks against the United States, and he's in a very tough spot. I mean, my question is, what would you say to the families who are affected, the great Americans who lose their lives and loved ones after an attack like this? I didn't want you to see the text that I sent to my wife or husband.
Well, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, everything these patriots do for our country is what they deserve. However, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about Snowden and what he leaked. And he leaked nothing that would ever hurt these heroes. This had to be done to protect our constitutional rights. And I'm sure every true patriot soldier would hold up these values.
And for us, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So you believe that the documents that he leaked from the National Security Agency had no pertinence to the national security of our country?
That's correct.
Okay. May I begin my questioning?
Yes.
You believe in protecting our citizens' rights, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And you believe that you would say that the job of our government and elected officials is to protect our citizens from enemies foreign and domestic?
Yes, and I'd like to point out that domestic also includes oversights by government corporations like the NSA.
Okay. Our government has secrets for a reason, and to protect to protect our citizens. And when traitors like Glenn Greenwald, Edward Snowden, and Laura Poitras destroy that secrecy on their crusade for social justice, they are directly contradicting our government for their own interests. How can you possibly defend their actions?
As a whole, your committee, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Crowley, you're pointing out the secrets that Mr. Snowden's leaked affecting the NSA privacy and ability to do their work. Yet, nothing Mr. Snowden has leaked is hurting the American people. It is only helping us.
Mr. Romero, it is not just about what he has leaked. It's about what that does to the future. All right, terrorists now know much too much about our defense systems and how we are trying to get insight into what they're thinking, what they're planning. This will have profound effects on our defense system at this point.
Sir, person to speak? Thank you. That's not the problem, though. The problem is that in the future, things like this need to happen to inform the people. What, as I keep reiterating, what he has leaked, programs like PRISM and the dragnets put in place are just mass surveillance systems that don't help what you're saying.
Are you that ignorant that you don't see that it's helping?
Show me the proof.
That
you can't because of national security reasons.
Mr. Romero, please relax. It is not under our jurisdiction to reveal any specificities on the matter.
Yet I've never heard, nothing's ever come out. No plot ever has been proven. Why is that?
Because you're a member of the ACLU.
Oh, and the whole public, we have a right to know.
There's no point in instilling unjust fear, well, it is just, but unwarranted fear in this nation, the people, because if we're able to subdue a plot, then why should we freak everyone out?
So when you're saying out of the 52 plots, only 2 were foiled, the rest we need to know about those?
Does that make those terrorist attacks okay? Does that make them okay?
That question has already been addressed by Mr. Alexander, and there will be no further speaking on that point. All right, we'll move on now to Ms. Jean Carey. The chair recognizes you, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to the panel and committee. My name is Jean Carey, current Secretary of State of the United States of America. I'm here to speak in support of the National Security Agency in light of one Edward Snowden, former NSA contractor, and his recent breach of national safety. As an advisor of foreign affairs to the President, my relationship to the National Security Agency is one of mutual support. I believe the NSA carries immense responsibilities in the name of protecting the United States and our allies. Edward Snowden's breach of security has allowed for many of our nation's enemies to gain insight into the methods and mechanisms by which the U.S. collects intelligence in order to prevent terrorist attacks. After the release of NSA's collection methods, the NSA was able to gather evidence that terrorist forces were immediately taking action and making changes, and this was going to make it harder for the United States to break up plots and harder to protect our nation. The NSA has an extremely streamlined purpose. Terrorist groups are using the services that the NSA collected data from. The National Security Agency is looking for specific information about who is aiding information to terrorists and the extent and content of the information they are giving. The NSA is not breaching the civil liberties of a mass amount of citizens. Just 300 cell phone numbers were finally examined as a result of the NSA investigations in 2012, which helped stop 42 different terrorist plots and identified 12 individuals for providing information to terrorists. 41 of the terrorist actions that were prevented would have affected U.S. allies like Germany, France, Denmark, and other countries around the world, not just the United States. Clearly, the prevention efforts by the NSA have had a profound and potentially life-saving effect on the citizens of the United States. The Patriot Act was the result of a broad concern for a lack of safety, and clearly its results have been beneficial to the people. When Edward Snowden took the federal employee oath, he swore the following words: "I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, without purpose of evasion." Edward Snowden's release of private government information has given aid to foreign enemies. Upon breaking this oath, he became a traitor to the United States of America, so he should man up and come home to face the music of betraying his country. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes, the chair recognizes you, the representative from the great state of Arkansas.
So, Ms. Carey, although Snowden did expose these security details regarding terrorists, do you not feel that it is important for the citizens of the U.S. to be informed on whether or not they are being watched by the government on a daily basis?
I do feel like the government may have taken surveillance a little bit too far. However, with the purpose of protecting our great nation, it is important that we are able to stop terrorist attacks before they happen. There is no evidence of complete mass surveillance of the entire nation. It's selective surveillance, which means that if there is evidence of communication with terrorists or potential terrorist plots, you will be watched. So it is not every single person in the United States. It is just a select few.
But if you were being watched in your home, at your office, and at restaurants, would you want to know? Yes or no?
I have nothing to hide. So honestly, with the purpose of national security, I hold our nation above anything else. So I think it is important that we protect our nation against all foreign and domestic terrorists.
Being recorded?
I have nothing to hide.
Thank you. I yield the balance.
Mr. Chair, may I please be recognized?
Yes, the chair recognizes the representative from the great state of New York.
Ms. Carey, as you just mentioned, after the initial release of NSA documents, you recognize that the U.S. may have taken their surveillance too far. Still, the government sees the benefits of continuing this program. What do you feel that they are?
Thank you, Representative Galatano. I believe that it is important that we foil all terrorist plots before they happen, if we possibly could. If we think back to 2001, September 11th, if we had known that there was going to be a giant terrorist attack on our nation, would we have done everything we possibly could to stop it? I think we would have. That would mean that over thousands of people would still be alive, thousands of grieving family members would have their loved ones back. So I think that it is important that we continue to stop these different terrorist attacks and try to foil these plans, and it is important that we use surveillance in order to do so, so that we have a safe nation once again.
Thank you. I know that with this surveillance, there could have been a big impact on my state because of the 9/11 attacks. I yield my time.
Ms. Poitras will be the last one to present. Ms. Poitras, the chair recognizes you, and you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Poitras, a documentary filmmaker and a journalist. Ever since 9/11, I have been extremely dedicated to exploring the national surveillance and security systems put in place by the United States government. I created the film Citizen4 to document the actions of one heroic Edward Snowden in a film that would impact the public in the most powerful way possible. United States citizens have the right to have access to the confidential government knowledge Snowden chose to impart to myself and Glenn Greenwald. I believe that Citizen4 was an essential piece of work that holds the government accountable for what it has done, and no big deal or anything, it won an Oscar. I felt confident in the production of my film and that it would go beyond the surface, delving deeper into the secret actions of the government. It brought the wonderful No Place to Hide by my friend Glenn Greenwald to life. While some on this panel may think that Snowden's actions are illegal, he is one of very few who is willing to acknowledge the fact that the actions of the government are what is truly, morally, and legally wrong. When I first met Snowden, I realized he had everything to lose. He was a young, charismatic man who was going above and beyond to fairly inform the public. I respected how much he was sacrificing to help protect the individual rights of United States citizens, and his strength in standing up for what he believes in. Without Snowden, the public would not understand or realize the dangers of surveillance and what the government is fully capable of controlling. It was extraordinary to meet such a courageous man who was so convicted in what he believed in, and I was more than willing to help. Just remember, like the genius Ladar Levison said, what good is the right to free speech if it's not protected? As he so perfectly put it, has some sort of chilling effect, doesn't it? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes, the chair recognizes the representative from the great state of Wyoming.
Ms. Borges, do you see any benefits of targeted surveillance?
Myself, and I think I can speak for Glenn Greenwald and anyone who's assisted Edward Snowden in this process, we don't argue targeted surveillance. What we see as wrong is this mass surveillance state that the United States has turned into, that these citizens were just completely unaware of. Targeted surveillance is fine, but what we were trying to release is that innocent citizens were seriously being tapped into all their phone calls like prison release, and that's where the line was crossed, and that's where we wanted to give the citizens what they deserved and what they needed to hear.
So you are basically advocating not for the end of surveillance and not to just give up protecting the United States. You just want to reform the mass surveillance that is clearly harming and overstepping the boundaries of American citizens. This is very reasonable. Thank you, Mrs. Borges. I yield the balance of my time.
Mr. Chairman, may I please be recognized?
Yes, the chair recognizes the representative from the great state of New York.
How were you able to feel confident that Snowden was acting for the good of the nation rather than to bring harm to our great nation? And what did you think that the consequences of your actions would be?
Well, we weren't worried about the consequences of our actions. Our actions were done in sacrifice to what every single United States citizen deserved. So we were willing to maybe, and it is a little hypocritical, we feel a little unsafe in our homes, but that was all for the citizens. And we wanted the citizens to know what they were being tapped into. And I don't think we did a disservice to our country. I think we simply informed the citizens with what they needed to know, and what the government was doing was completely wrong and unnecessary, and it went way too far. So I was willing to give up some of my own safety just for their own knowledge.
So are the terms whistleblower and patriot synonymous to you?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Fortress.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes, the chair recognizes the representative from the great state of Texas.
I have one question for you, Ms. Poitras. Do you, in your honest opinion, think your film has made America, your film and the revelations made by Edward Snowden, and along with the book by Glenn Greenwald, do you think they have made America a safer place? And American soldiers, do you think it has made them safer?
Yes. I think every citizen knows what they deserve to know.
How do you feel knowing that the terrorists now know how the U.S. gathers intelligence on them?
Like what I said when I answered Representative Representative Montesano's question, targeted surveillance is a different story than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about innocent citizens being kept in jail.
The government, I'm not in a position of as much knowledge as people like Mr. Alexander or those involved in the military. But how, if you were, let's say, the NSA director, how would you know what terrorist suspects to target? Or would you put a broad scope so you can catch as many terrorist plots as possible?
I'm not sure what I would do if I was in the NSA, but I know I would not do what they have done.
Do you not trust the NSA's decisions to, do you not trust their merits to decide what the proper technique
I don't think
for
they
surveillance
deserve to be tapping into every innocent
So
American.
you think their
cause.
techniques and their decisions were completely wrong, and they did not make the correct decisions
Yes.
on surveillance?
They've done nothing to deserve our trust.
Mr. Greenwald.
Apologize.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes, the chair recognizes the representative from the great state of Arkansas.
So, Ms. Poitras, you previously stated how it is kind of hypocritical how you released some of the government's private information and now your privacy is being invaded and you don't feel safe in your own home. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. I just wanted to make a point there. How it is very hypocritical of the government to now be invading her privacy when they found it very wrong of her to invade their privacy.
Well, she's an enemy. She's an enemy of the United States.
She is a true patriot.
Edward
not
Snowden
enemy.
is a patriot as well.
You're an enemy to the American people.
Agreed.
Sir.
Thank you, Ms. Poitras.
I would like to add one thing before we close, and that is that you're dramatizing of what the NSA is doing into some film so that the American people can watch it with some popcorn and try to instill fear into them and turn them against this very nation is inappropriate and unpatriotic.
Deplorable.
I watched it with my Oscar yesterday. I loved it.
Exactly. It's all about you. It's all about
It's
your
all about
Oscar
the people.
Trying.
All about the people.
Really selfish. Very selfish. That will be all for today. Thank you again to each and every one of you for your testimony. I am sure the American people have become more informed on this issue and have taken our side. Events like these are essential for our democracy. One last thing before we leave. I would like to wish my friend Andreas Kantopoulos a very happy 18th birthday. If you have any more questions, please refer directly to the testimony. This committee is now adjourned.